Okay, what day is it and time and Greta?
Today is September 30, 2013. And on May 3rd, 2013, Mom celebrated her 90th birthday. So we thought it would be fun to reminisce about Mom's life. And so, Mom, why don't you tell us about when you were born?
Well, I was born on May 3rd, 1923, on Mill Road, Mill, and the house was in the middle of the farm, which was very usual at that time. And the house was made out of field stone, garnered off of the flat stone, garnered off of this farm. It was built on a hillside, and 4 steps down and you were in the basement. And if you went around to the front of the house, there wasn't any steps there, but if there had been 4 steps, you'd been in the 2nd floor. So we had lots of fun rolling down these hills on the grass. The walls were made of 14-inch thick walls of stone, and every window had a window well where you could sit or put something on it.
A deep one where you could sit on it.
Yeah, 14 inches thick. Well, after a while, the government and President Roosevelt was going to remove the slums from Cincinnati, and they bought all of this ground. I forget how many, it must have been like 600 acres. And of course we had to move. And, pardon me. Then this was turned into a park, because by that time, the war had come along, and there wasn't the slums that there had been. So, but they did make a housing project there, and the streets were like A, B, C, and D, would be Andover, Berkeley, I forget what the other 2 were, and we had a drugstore. It was like a general store, and served lunches there. And then there was a grocery store next to it, and then a dry cleaner and a hair salon, and then a hardware store, and then down underneath was a car fix-it place, and a locker plant, and 3 or 4 other shops.
In Green Hills.
In Green Hills.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked at the government, had an office there, and Grandpa worked in that office.
Grandpa Ellerding worked in that
Yeah.
office. Mm-hmm.
He was farm manager. This Green Hills was a bunch of houses, and then it was completely surrounded by farms, and most of those were dairy farms. And then he had to see that these people planted the right stuff and kept things up, all that kind of stuff. Okay, how far are we now?
You did really good. And so we talked about the house. You were telling us about the house, and you went to elementary school then at Mount Healthy.
Yeah, my dad took me and my brothers to school, and then when Ed got old enough to drive, he drove for us and would take us to school. He was in high school at that time, but he would come around and get me, and we'd go home.
At your school, he'd pick you up from your school and take you home.
Yeah, it was Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
And at age 13, we moved to Lick Road at the home where Mother and Dad had. And there was a dairy there. Well, we had a dairy down on Mill Road. We had 9 cows. And of course, this was a bigger farm. And we had more dairy. and it was milked by hand for a while, and then they finally got milking machines. But it was a hard life. It was a hard life.
Absolutely. Tell me, when your brother passed away,
Okay.
he was in between you and Uncle Ed?
Yes, he was a year and a quarter younger than my brother, and I was 7 years younger than he was.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how old were you when that happened?
I was about 11 when he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
He had appendicitis, and the old doctor at that time would just put ice on him. It burst,
Sure.
and so he had to go to the hospital. Of course, we didn't have any money to start with to take him to the hospital. Didn't think we had, and so that's the reason they didn't do an operation right away.
Mm-hmm.
But he, after it burst, he was comatose. I mean, he was up and around, and he was laying in bed, and he decided he wanted to go home, and so he gets himself out of bed, and he goes over to the window, and the window was partially up, and by that time the nurse come in, and of course in his stupor, he raised up and cracked his head on the window frame.
Oh.
So it was really
Combination of things, I
it was
guess.
a combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
Peritonitis had set into the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
broken.
The burst appendicitis, yeah.
And so I think it was this knock on the head that
Mhm.
really killed him
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
caused his death.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to shut it off a minute?
Yeah.
So at age 13, so you went to high school